Hello and welcome back to the EMJ GOLD podcast, brought to you by EMJ, your number one open access destination for HCPs and pharma globally. Hi Jade.
Hi Isabel.
Welcome back to another episode.
Thank you. How are you doing today?
Very good. Very much looking forward to sharing the interview we have coming up today. So, as many of you will know, we are just off the back of World AMR Awareness Week, which aims to raise both awareness and understanding of AMR. So it's a good time to be catching up with today's guest.
Almost as if we've planned it. This year's theme of the campaign was Educate, Advocate, Act Now, which aims to shed light on the sense of urgency that's really being felt in the AMR space at the moment. So to commemorate the occasion, I got the chance to sit down with someone that's doing some really important work in the space, actually, and that is Elias Revonta, and he is the founder and CEO of Orcason Medical.
Indeed you did. So for a bit of background, Elias's company is developing a really innovative point of care device, a few different devices for the ear, the nose and the throat, which aim to prevent the overprescription of antibiotics, hopefully lessening the future burden of AMR in the process. So what else did you guys chat about apart from this?
Well, a lot on that, as you can imagine. But we also discussed Elias's journey into pharma. It's quite a unique story, so that was quite fun to get into. He also shared some top tips for startups that are looking to secure early stage funding, as his business has just gone through this. And much more. I won't spoil it too much.
Yeah, we'll leave it there very nearly. But before we do get into the episode, let's give a bit of background on Elias himself. So as we mentioned, he is the founder and CEO of Orcason Medical, and he has a strong background in the medical device industry, spanning over 20 years, I believe. So quite a substantial background in roles from sales to product development.
Yeah, absolutely. Elias is also really passionate about transforming and democratizing healthcare. I think that's something that really rings true during our conversation as well. So his use of modern and really easy to use diagnostic tools, they really serve all demographics. So that was quite interesting to hear about. With a mission to combat the rise of AMR as well, his goal is to protect the power of antibiotics and improve the lives of millions of patients by enabling smarter and safer healthcare solutions.
It all sounds very promising and interesting. So without further ado, I think we will get into the episode.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today on such an important week as this. As I'm sure our listeners are aware, we are just coming off the back of World Antimicrobial Resistance Awareness Week, which is hugely important. And the theme for this year is actually all around education, educate, advocate, act now. So yeah, hugely important time to be talking to you, because I know this is a field that you're super interested in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's great to be talking about this here, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Definitely. Well, before we do get into all that, I'd like to learn a little bit more about you to begin with. And I'd love to know what first actually inspired your journey into the medical field.
Well, I guess I was born into it. I mean, I come from a family that's greatly involved in healthcare. Both of my parents are my dad's a doctor, my mom's an audiologist. You know, I come from a family that's heavily involved in healthcare. So, yeah, I guess I was kind of born into it. Also, I guess my own background as a patient, I was born with 2 heart defects and got to see the Finnish healthcare system very closely at a young age. I received some excellent care, and because of that, I was given a chance to live a normal life. So that made a lasting impression on me and sparked an interest in me to give back. So I would say that's definitely the reason why I'm here doing what I do.
It's really cool. Wow. So you said your dad's also in the health space. What is it that he specializes in? If your
Well,
mom's an audiologist.
Yeah, my dad's, well, they're both retired, but my dad's an ENT docent. He practiced 46 years as an ENT doctor. So this is, I guess it's kind of in the blood, this thing that we're doing.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, hopefully we can get a bit more into that as we go on into the discussion. So for our listeners that may not be aware, Elias is the CEO of Orcason. And you very recently sort of set up the business, I would say, in like a business landscape, if anyone else is looking at it. And so I'd love to get your opinion on how you faced sort of the funding rounds as you develop the startup? Because as we all know, funding and resources can be quite tough for startups. So I'd love to sort of pick your brains about how you captured investor interest and secured the backing that you needed to really launch Orcason Medical.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, startup funding can definitely be tough. I mean, there's a lot of great ideas competing for the interest of investors and the space, and especially in the medical technology, there's always the hurdles of you have to develop the devices, and then there's a regulatory processes that take time. So it's definitely not one of the easiest um, startup places to start, or startup scenes, but I would say that we succeeded in capturing the interest of investors by having a solution to a big enough problem. And I guess that's it goes to any startup. I mean, you take any of these big successful ones. I mean, they've been able to have a solution or solve something that has been perceived as a big problem. Having a scalable business model as well is something that you definitely need to have, and that's something that we know that we can do a big impact on a global scale with our solutions. So on financially, but also on improving the lives of people. And I guess that's one of the maybe I would say that that's the biggest reason why we were able to secure funding and being able to grow as a business is having a compelling and a relatable story.
Right.
I believe that people want to do good when given the opportunity and want to be part of something good. So that's how we've been able to do what we do. Of course, none of this would not have happened without having great people around us, supporting us and connecting us with other great people. So
Definitely. No, it's super interesting. I love to see that you guys sort of seem to have started out with the goal in mind of helping the world rather than sort of starting with, as can potentially be tempting for startups, this is the business model that we're going to follow. Whereas you guys seem to have started with this is what we're going to solve, and this is why it's going to be great for the world, and this is why you should back us.
I think that's the way to go. I mean, if you go heavily just on the financial business side, that's hardly so relatable.
Right.
And you know, building a story around that is a little difficult. And well, still, it's humans. I don't know when at what point the AI starts making these decisions, if it does, but it's people making decisions, and it's the story. It's the story of what you're doing and why you're doing. I love the I love the analogy of Simon Sinek, who talks about starting with why,
Yeah,
and that's exactly what resonates with people. It's the why you do it.
absolutely. Cool, amazing. So would you say that your advice to any other keen startups out there going through these funding rounds would be to go watch a Simon Sinek TED Talk and start with the why?
That's not a bad idea, and that's not bad advice. I mean, I certainly have watched it multiple times, but and there's a lot of other great people. My advice to anybody, getting into the startup scene is you got to have belief in yourself. I mean, just you know, at some point, it seems like that's the only thing you have, but you have to have belief and be tenacious. You got to have resilience. You got to keep knocking on those doors. It's a game of having faith and believing in yourself and what you do.
Yeah. Cool, very poignant. Thank you. So as we mentioned at the beginning of this discussion, this is World Antimicrobial Resistance Awareness Week, and AMR is, of course, a huge issue across the world. But I'd love to get to know what you see as the biggest challenges are in tackling it today, both from a sort of medical perspective and also a societal perspective.
Yeah, I think this is a great week to be talking about this. Um, there's been a lot of advancements this year because I mean, just talking about on the World Antimicrobial Awareness Week, that's not enough. We need to talk about this. Uh, well, not necessarily 24/7, but we need to be talking about it constantly. This needs to be an issue that we, as a whole community, global community, we start raising awareness on. And addressing AMR requires a multifaceted approach, blending innovation in diagnostics and treatments with public health campaigns, policy reforms, and global partnerships. It takes a lot of effort on all fronts from all levels, from the top to the bottom, to the decision makers to the root level, organizations.
Yeah, hugely. Um, so, how do you think there's any way? Obviously, everyone knows that some of these organizations can be a bit siloed, and getting government to sort of work with industry can also be a bit of a contentious point at that stage as well. Do you think there's any moves that could make that collaboration that seems so important in tackling AMR? Do you think there's anything that could be used to help that along in any way?
Well, I think, you know companies like ourselves and private entities coming up with solutions, tangible solutions to problems. I mean, um, raising awareness on antimicrobial resistance and or it's so oftenly it's called antibiotic resistance, but it's not just antibiotics. There are other ones as well, but raising awareness is definitely something that we need to do because at right now it's on a global scale. There's still a lot of places where there is no awareness of what actually is a bacterial or what's a viral infection, and so raising awareness is a big thing. We also need to have tangible solutions. We need to have something that can be used, tools that can be adopted easily. And I think, like I said in the beginning, it's a multifaceted approach, but having something that we can actually do, and we can give the healthcare providers, the professionals, tools that aid in the overprescription of antibiotics for conditions or diseases that don't need them. So that's one of the things that, in my opinion, is one of the, and it's not just my opinion, but it is the biggest drivers in antibiotic resistance is the overprescription of antibiotics. We overuse and misuse antibiotics, and with with the lack of rapid diagnostic tests or tools, devices that give you the information to differentiate or confirm bacterial infections or diseases, it's crucial to have those tools.
Definitely, yeah. Well, speaking of the chills, you've eased me wonderfully into the next question I have for you, which is all around those rapid diagnostic devices and tools that you mentioned there. What would you say are the most hopeful advancements in the battle against AMR? And do you see a turning point on the horizon?
Well, there are a lot of there are a lot of different tools and advancements in this space. There are a great many companies that are developing point of care diagnostic tools and solutions to enable faster identification of infections and appropriate antibiotic use. And these advancements will reduce unnecessary prescriptions and help clinicians target treatment more effectively. We here at Orcason Medical, we developed an ultrasound device to help diagnose sinusitis accurately. We know there's a company in Seattle, just to name a few, but there's a company in Seattle called Orcason Medical that is doing the same with ear infections. They have an ultrasound device coming on the market that's going to be, solving the problem of differentiating ear infections, viral from bacterial, which is one of the it's a huge driver of unnecessary antibiotic prescriptions. There's also a great company coming from where you live in UK called the Septest that is developing a rapid point of care test, like a finger prick test. There's other companies, Taxis Pharmaceuticals from US is exploring new ways to make old antibiotics work in resistant cases with very cool new ways of actually targeting the root cause of AMR, or the resistance. But there's a lot of different avenues. There's a lot of different innovations. I mean, we're coming back to phage therapy, where the revival of the bacteriophage therapy, which uses viruses to target and kill bacteria, that's showing great promise as an alternative to traditional antibiotics, especially in drug-resistant infections. So there's lots of great companies that are doing this. These are obviously for-profit companies that are private companies, but also there's great non-profit organizations. There's just a massive amount of great non-profit organizations, NGOs, and non-profits that are promoting antibiotic awareness, antibiotic development, and the One Health approach, where the One Health approach would be one of the biggest things in promoting antibiotic awareness. That it's a whole. It's not just us humans, but it's giving antibiotics to animals and the agriculture and the environment. How the antibiotics go back. They go through our systems. They go through the animal system, and they go back into the environment, into the waters and soil. So yeah, there's I think there's great hope. There's like Fleming Initiative coming from UK that has gotten just absolutely fantastic funding for what they're doing. So yeah.
Amazing. Gosh, I didn't know there was so much going on in this space. That's really exciting. And it's a really exciting time to be working in it, I can imagine, with so much on the horizon. Gosh, yeah, I suppose a lot of that comes from what I'm hearing from you, sort of tackling it at the root there, not only in developing these sort of diagnostic tools that prevent prescription in the first place and overprescription, but then, yeah, tackling the mindset behind antibiotic use is so key. So, yeah, hopefully that's something that we do see a change in the coming years, hopefully soon.
That's true. And it's important to remember that in many countries, where Western countries, where there's overuse of antibiotics or misuse of antibiotics, but there's also in developing countries, there's a lack of antibiotics. There's a lack of proper health care. So that's the other side of this issue, that it needs to there is global inequity in healthcare access. So in low income regions, there's poor access to healthcare, and substandard medications, just exacerbate the resistance and hinder effective treatment.
Hugely, I can imagine. Well, yeah, hopefully, as we said, we do see a bit of change there, especially for those areas that lack access. Surprising to see that the overuse of them and also the underuse of them is contributing to the same problem.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. And we need to be very mindful of this antibiotic use, because there hasn't been a new novel antibiotic since the 80s. I mean, and the
Right.
development of new antibiotics is slow.
Mm.
It's costly, So we really need to mind the use and be aware of how we use these.
Yeah, definitely. Gosh, wow. I feel like I've learned so much today. Thank you. We have come across my last question now. Thank you so much for sticking with me so far. But the final question I have for you is, what legacy do you hope to leave on the healthcare space? It's quite a big question, sorry, but I'd love to know what you think.
That's a great question. I mean, myself and Orcason Medical as a company, we have a big vision and a vision mission. But yeah, we aim to be in the front lines of stopping the growth of antibiotic-resistant bacteria and help secure the effectiveness of antibiotics for ourselves and the future generations. That's a mouthful. I mean, it's it's a big vision, but that is the legacy that we want to leave behind us. We want to be working for solutions. We want to be providing solutions that really help save the power and restore the power of antibiotics. We wholeheartedly believe that with the right tools and with the right education and cooperation, this is achievable. But that's exactly what it needs. We need the tools, we need the education, and we need the cooperation.
Yeah, gosh, very multifaceted approach there, but a hugely important one. And hopefully we do see the fruits of all your labor coming to us all very time soon.
I think we're taking great steps. Like I mentioned earlier, this year's been from the United Nations Great Assembly, where AMR was one of the biggest health topics. There's been from the beginning of this year. There's been high level meetings and there's been a lot of action on this front. And I have strong belief that we as a human race we're going to overcome this hurdle and restore something that Alexander Fleming came up here in UK to make a real difference in the healthcare and in preserving people's lives. So yeah, we need to restore that, and we're yeah, I think we're on the right track. It looks very promising.
Definitely. Hugely agree. Well, I'm sure all our listeners will be crossing their fingers and hoping that we do see that change sometime soon. Thank you so much for talking with me today. You've been a pleasure.
Definitely. Thanks a lot, Jade. It was my pleasure.
Well, thanks for that interview, Jade. Really enjoyed listening in. Lots to take away. Clearly some exciting technology on the horizon, potentially. Hopefully we really can see that push of the needle when it comes to AMR. What was your favourite takeaway?
Oh, so many to choose from, but I'd say his points about making sure that we don't lose momentum when it comes to raising awareness of AMR really stuck with me. We might be coming off an awareness week, but as he said, we do need to keep talking about it. I think that rings true for any awareness week that comes about. AMR really needs to be an issue that we as a global community really do continue to raise awareness about, regardless of the time of the year. It just, as he said, takes a lot of effort from all fronts at all levels.
Absolutely, a real collective effort required, I think. Personally, I also like what he said around his mission and his company's aim to be at the front lines of fighting antibiotic-resistant bacteria. It's a huge goal and a really big vision, and I think driving forward with that motivation is so important, especially for a company that's, in those more earlier stages as his is. So yeah, very important to have an end goal in mind, and it definitely seemed like Elias did.
Yeah, hugely, no matter how big that end goal might be.
Big
That
one.
does, however, sadly bring us to the end of today's episode. Thank you so much again to Elias for joining us today, and thank you at home for listening.
Take care, and it's bye from us.
See you next time.